Hey there, good afternoon, and welcome to Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. It's brought to you by SCDHEC, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, Agape Counseling and Training Center, and also Columbia Housing Authority. They've got some great things going on in conjunction with their demolition of Allen Benedict Court. Keep listening for more information about that. I'm Tre Tailor, and COVID has certainly given us many lifetime experiences. Have you gone through something you think is interesting, helpful, compelling, or is it just something that you've been wanting to share, to get off your chest? Well, why don't you write a book about it? To tell us how, author, publishers, and entrepreneurs Tamika Sims and Natasha Brown join us next on Coping with COVID. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. We look forward to hearing the great information that you're going to share with us coming up next. Winn-Dixie has added to the list of companies requiring face masks. All major retailers have issued the mandate, even in cities and states that are not endorsing it. After Walmart issued the mandate last week, Kroger, Publix, and Walgreens followed suit. The National Retail Association has encouraged companies to set nationwide face mask policies for employees and their shoppers. The NFL has agreed to cancel all 4 weeks of preseason play and reduce the size of training camps. The Players Association and the league came to the agreement after weeks of haggling, decided it was not worth it to risk players' health to travel for exhibition games. And I want to follow up on a story that I did yesterday about Kanye, his questionable comments about the South Carolina rally this past weekend. He said Harriet Tubman didn't free the slaves. He was going to run on his own birthday party, and various other tweets and comments about his wife and mother-in-law trying to lock him up. Well, Dave Chappelle jumped on a plane to check on the rapper to just make sure he was okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that is really true friendship. And of course, we all wish Kanye West well, health, and abundant blessings. I'm Tre Tailor, and SCDHEC and Prisma Health continue their ongoing COVID testing. For the most up-to-date list, visit scdhec.gov and prismahealth.org for dates, times, and daily locations for testing in South Carolina. Today in Bradley, they're having testing until 4 o'clock this afternoon at Plead, until 3 o'clock today at Heath Springs Town Hall, and also in Somerton till 8 o'clock tonight at both Liberty Baptist Church and in Spartanburg at Macedonia Baptist Church. Now in Spartanburg, tomorrow testing is going on at Cedar Grove Missionary Baptist Church, in Orangeburg at Ebenezer Baptist Church, in North Charleston at several locations at Charleston County School of the Arts, and also at Adams AME Church. Now, testing is going on tomorrow from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. at Ebenezer AME Church in Orangeburg, at North Charleston, at Ridgeway at Geiger Elementary School, and at Kingstree High School. That's tomorrow from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Also, this Friday and Saturday, testing is taking place in Columbia, South Carolina, from 8 a.m. until noon at AC Flora High School. Also, if you please check the bottom of the screen for more information about the City of Columbia's mask policy. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk with the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina on Friday, along with J. Anthony Brown. They've got a great new program available where you could win prizes just for wearing your creative mask. Also, if you live in Richland County, call 911 Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. to get information on COVID testing. DHEC's Care Line, of course, is still open and available, 855-472-3432 from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Not only if you need information about COVID testing, but if you need a ride to get a COVID test done. Now, if you'd like to organize COVID testing in your community or at your event, call 803-673-6110 from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Don't forget to check the bottom of the screen for more information about Dominion Energy's payment plan. They also have assistance available, the up to $1,500 rental payment from SC Thrive, and also the number you need to call. Again, if you see that there is a organization or a business in Columbia, South Carolina, not following the mask ordinance. Also, Reconciliation Ministries is distributing free food in Columbia, South Carolina. It's every Friday from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. through the end of August. Anyone can stop by First Nazarene Church. They're on St. Andrews Road at 901 St. Andrews Street. A Convoy of Hope donated 300,000 boxes of fresh food and vegetables to the organization. Now, if you are a nonprofit organization and you'd like to get some of those pallets of food to distribute to your community, you can also do that. Contact Reconciliation Ministries at 803-727-4697, or you can go to their website at reconciliation-min.org. Coping with COVID is brought to you in part by the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, also SCDHEC. We're also sponsored by Columbia Housing Authority. Once again, going to tell you some exciting news Columbia Housing Authority has coming up. And also Agape Counseling and Training Center. If you are having some challenges coping with COVID, contact Agape Counseling and Training Center. I'm Tre Tailor. I want to say hi to Diane Prince Williams watching. Also, Johnny Doby. Hello, Johnny. Thank you so much for watching us on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor, and don't forget that we are going to move Coping with COVID to my professional page. So please go on over to Tailor Made Productions, and we'd love for you to like and share that page, because Coping with COVID is going to move from my personal page to my professional page, Tailor Made Productions. Well, Tamika Sims is joining us along with Natasha Brown. Tamika is a 5-time author, entrepreneur, and dynamic influencer. She is the owner of Get Right with Tamika, LLC, where she provides book writing strategy sessions, author coaching, and publishing consulting. Natasha Brown also joins us today on Coping with COVID. She's a best-selling author of 10 Blessings of Betrayal. That sounds interesting. The publisher and book coach at Elohe International Publishing and Media, missionary, minister, and domestic violence advocate. She has coached hundreds of authors and brands and has ghostwritten and co-authored books with some of today's top celebrities, influencers, and entrepreneurs. Now, Natasha says her mission is to help survivors of trauma thrive in their God-given purpose. She does this through story coaching and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Natasha Brown, Tamika Sims. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us on Coping with COVID. I appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about this conversation today because I think we all have things that happen to us. We have experiences, good, bad, ugly, funny, compelling. And I don't know how many times people, I don't know about you, but to me, oh, girl, you should write a book, or have you written a book about that? And I think I don't even have time to do what I'm doing during the day, more or less write a book. That sounds like such a big task to me. But I also know that probably the best books, and you can answer this better than I can, some of the best books are real experiences and stories that people have had. Is that correct, ladies?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everyone wants to read a personal story. People want to know how you overcame something. When life hit you the hardest, what did you do to get out? How did God help you? How did your community and your village help you? So those are oftentimes the best books to read and write.
Yeah. And we're, living in COVID right now. We've been dealing with it since the beginning of the year. So I think this is probably a particularly interesting time for people. People have gone through some major life changes and shifts and losses and gains. So people may really have some great stories right now, especially some self-help stories. Wouldn't you think, Tamika?
No, I absolutely agree with you. Is that especially because the world has been put on pause, as I like to say. So we've all been put on pause, and we all have this time now and this opportunity to really take advantage of what has given to us. And so definitely the stories that are going to come out of this are going to be phenomenal. The sacrifices to make, the folks dealing with job losses, businesses shutting down, family issues, school. There's so many important subjects that any of us could tackle and write a book about.
Yeah. So let's start with first, how do we know if we even have content to write a book? What makes a book bookable? What makes a story bookable? If that's a word, I'm sure it's not, but
Well, again, I just kind of
It'll be
reiterate.
a word today. We'll let it be a word today.
Yes, it's a word today. Bookable. I like that. So I guess I'll answer that, Tamika, if you don't mind. First, I'll just kind of reiterate what I said before. Anytime you can write a story of tragedy to triumph, of overcoming, or perhaps you learned something on your journey that can help other people. If people are always asking you for advice on something or about something,
good.
That is something that you need to put in a book. If you're a single mom and you've mastered it, if you've mastered this COVID learning at home environment, teaching your kids at home, anything that you've overcome, that you've learned, that people are always asking you questions. And honestly, I like to tell people, really just begin to value your stories, because if you have thought of that story, or if you've gone through that story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, most of the time there's a community out there who can also relate. There are over 7 billion people on this earth. And so we're not the only ones going through what we're going through or thinking how we're thinking. And so oftentimes, your story is valid if it is coming to your mind, but you might need a book coach like myself or Tamika to help you pull it out and write it the right way. But don't discount or disvalue your story, devalue your story.
Yeah, I love.
No, I agree with you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Tamika. We have a little delay.
I was going to say that I definitely agree with Natasha, is that it's just so important to honor our stories and tell them. I know a lot of times, especially when it comes to life transitional stories, that there's a lot of pain associated with them. And many of us would rather not tell those stories anymore. But there is always a way that you can share a story where not only are you being healed in the same time, but people are also getting the purpose behind it. So there's always going to be purpose behind any pain we've experienced, any trauma we've gone through, any sacrifices or challenges that we've had in our lives. And what you can do in a book is you can take the lessons from that particular time period and share it. So as Natasha said, you are teaching some lesson, you are, as well as sharing portions of yourself, as well as putting yourself out there as a subject matter expert, especially for somebody like she and I. We both have had experience with domestic violence. So that automatically positions us as a subject matter expert when it comes to that. So again, don't discount your story. Look for the lessons that you can share with others. We're not bleeding on other people, if you know what I mean. So it's not designed to be that, but definitely a place where you can share your testimony as well as your healing journey.
Well, I love that, because both of you said a couple of things. One, okay, if you have gone through something on the other side, I think Natasha, you said everyone loves a story of triumph, tragedy to triumph. Yes. And I love that, because again, I think it's not only cathartic, you're getting it out, but it's helping somebody else. The other thing that you said, Natasha, that is great is, if people are always asking you, how did you do 1, 2, 3? Then that's a book. That's an instructional book.
Yes, it is. I want to touch on something you mentioned, Tre, because you said it's cathartic to write the story. Something I tell my clients and our authors at Elohai International. It is when you write the story, it is going to be therapy for you. It's going to be ministry for you, especially if it's a story of pain that has helped you birth purpose. The writing process is for you. So really soak it in. But always remember, when that book comes out, it's going to be about everybody else. Then that is when you begin to feed other people. That is when it positions you as a subject matter expert. That is when you will begin to be launched into another level of your purpose.
Yeah. That's good. Go ahead. You were going to say something, Tamika?
And another thing about books is that books give language to somebody else's experience. If you've never told your story, maybe you and I have had similar experiences, but you've never told it. If you read my book, it helps you to language to what you've experienced. Right. And we can't forget that as well, because although I believe that we all have a story, not everybody is going to release it or publish it. And nor do I believe that everyone should. Some things are just for us to get off of our chest. But the other thing is that don't forget that you're essentially giving voice to somebody else's experience. You're giving language to somebody else's life, and that helps them as an aside, it helps them to say, you know what, I'm not alone. Tamika has gone through this. Natasha has gone through this. Trey has gone through this. So I know that there's someone else out there that's walked a mile in my shoes, and I can learn from what it is that they have experienced and gone through, because they've chosen to share their lessons with me and essentially a portion of their life with me by sharing this information in a book.
Right. Diane Prince Williams says, so true, lady. She says her first book, A Life That Mattered, honored her brother who suffered death as a pedestrian in 2017. So Diane was doing just like you guys said. She was sharing a part of her. And I would think, Diane, was it part of therapy for you? You know, like Natasha said, was it cathartic just to write it down? You know, just to, you know, because sometimes I think when we are going through things, we've got to go through some kind of process to heal. So books can be healing.
Yeah. And oftentimes when you're writing those books, you might start with journaling. And that was for me. I remember my first book, 10 Blessings of Betrayal. It tells the story of how I was wrongfully accused of trying to kill my ex-abuser. I was framed for that crime. And for 9 months, I spent, you know, trying to fight for my life and fight for my freedom. And at one point, I became so angry and bitter and upset. And I began to pray and like, God, what is next for me? How do I get out of this place? And he told me to write. And so what I thought I was doing, Trey, to your point, was I thought I was just getting out my feelings. I thought I was journaling. I thought I was just, you know, doing something that was cathartic. It wasn't until I began to write that God began to kind of reveal my journey to me in the form of blessings. And that is when I started to go back over it. You know, he was kind of telling me, okay, this is a book. Okay, this is actually not just for you. It's a book. And so it didn't start with me saying, I'm going to write a book about my journey. It started with me being obedient to God and trying to heal from the pain and the betrayal and the hurt and the abuse, and me then using what I wrote to then publish a book.
Wow, girl, you said so much right there. First of all, that sounds like an episode of CSI. First of all, I was like, I'm ready to read the book right now. You know, that's deep. Here's the other thing, Natasha, as you said, and Tamika and I talked about this a little bit before we came on the air. We're going to go through some things in life. I mean, life is going to deal us some hands that are great hands and that are not so great hands, but it's life. And we've got to recognize, if we are followers of Christ, that it's all for a purpose. It's all for a reason. There's a reason why we're going through all of this. And if we would, as you say, just sit back a minute and say, okay, wait a minute, what's going on right here? Then we can kind of get the instructions, so to speak, to figure out what we're going to do. And that's what's happening right now in COVID. There's a lot of death and despair and sickness and financial problems. And my heart and prayers go out to everyone and anyone who is experiencing that this time. But you know what? We've got to figure out how to turn it around. We've got to figure out personally, what is this? Why is this happening? Why am I being affected by this right now in this way? God, what are you telling me? What do I need to do next?
Yeah.
And, you know, and also looking at the greater purpose behind it. That's really the thing. A lot of times when we're caught up in our situations, we can't see the purpose in it. Absolutely. And for many of us, that's why we sit. And that's why we sit on our stories for so long, is because we haven't resolved in our mind and in our hearts and spirits of what did I really go through this for? At least for me, when I was working on my first book of coming out of that experience, I questioned God so much. Like, how could you allow this to happen to me? And I'm your daughter and I'm active. You know how we do. And, you know, but I had to take a step back and have to say, you know what? I went through this so that other victims of domestic violence who were in the faith community could have a voice. They could have someone to say, you know what, I understand exactly what you're experiencing. thing, and here's what I was able to do to come out of it. And then, you think about people that have been diagnosed with cancer during the time, people that have had major medical issues during this time, lost their loved ones during this time, all of the other tragedies that come. There are stories being written every single day. There are lives being changed and impacted every day. And one of the ways that you can come out of that in a positive manner, using your pain for your purpose, so to speak, is you can take it and start journaling, as Natasha said, and it can really become a book. We're writing books on Facebook every day anyway. We're making these long status updates, and we're just sharing our free content anyway. You can take that and you can put it in a book and really help the world.
Yeah, you make such a great point, Tamika. You're right, girl. You read some of these posts, and good Lord have mercy. It's just...
Listen, ladies, I've had so many authors. One in particular, the other, maybe a few years ago, I worked with an author, and she literally turned Facebook posts into a best-selling book that has been featured by many news outlets. And so she's not lying here. Go back through your Facebook, your Instagram posts. A lot of those posts can become devotionals. It can become, self-help books. And so we're smarter than we think we are. And what we want to accomplish is easier than we think it is oftentimes. We just have to take the first step.
Yeah, because in the posts, we're writing, we're doing the work, we're doing the therapy. And as you said, Natasha, you might as well post it if you want, but put it in a journal too. Just get you a 15-cent book, from the dollar store, a dollar book from the dollar store, a couple of just notebooks, and start writing. So what do you write? So we know, first of all, if you've got a story to share, if you've gone through something, if you have an area of expertise that, and here's the thing, the area of expertise, you may or may not think somebody wants it, but if it's an area of expertise, then, definitely write it down. So what are we writing exactly in our Dollar Tree book?
I think it depends on the story that you want to tell. I think it really depends on the story that you want to tell. Either you're looking at your life and you're chronicling a particular time period, or you want to share the facts around a particular experience that you've had. Like with Diane, she talked about her brother losing his life. Are you surrounding it? Are you wanting to create content based off of a particular event? Or are you wanting to share your subject matter expertise? Are you wanting to co-author a book with other folks because the subject or the theme just really resonates with you? So I really think it depends on the story that you want to tell. And more important than anything else is, what is God leading you to do? So that's you really listening to yourself, listening to your voice, listening to his voice, and really getting that divine instruction that you need, because ultimately God knows what his people need. And if he's going to use you as the pen to tell that story, then we have to make sure that we're positioning ourselves to really hear from him.
Okay, Natasha?
Yeah, I was going to, let me piggyback off of the last part that Tamika spoke. That's exactly what I was going to say. If you are a believer of Christ, then I think what's most important, especially during this time, is to be spending quiet time with God and really be trying to listen to what he would have for you, what he is saying about this season for your life and the lessons that you're learning. So writing those things, the revelation that you're receiving from the Lord and what the scriptures are speaking to you. And then also just journaling your everyday. While I was in grad school a couple of years ago, I started doing this where I would just kind of chronicle my day and just write about what happened, what I experienced, the people that I met, the things that I learned even throughout the day, because we don't realize how many lessons we're learning every single day by the conversations, the content. And so now is the time to get a good habit of listening to the Lord and journaling what he says and journaling what you're gathering from your life.
Yeah. Dr. Felicia Renee Riggs, lady, says she wants to tell a story, but it would make her children's father look bad. She says, so she's trying to find a way to tell it. She married a narcissist.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Go ahead, Natasha. Go ahead. I'll get it after you.
Yeah. So, okay. There's a couple of things that you want to, consider. Definitely be considerate of his feelings, but remember that, and I wouldn't say his feelings, but your children's feelings, right?
Yeah.
And how it will affect your children. But remember that it's your story. So you can tell the story, one, without telling names. And so, yes, the people that know you may know that you're talking about him, but imagine how big the world is. your community, let's just say it's 100 people who know both of you and who know who you're talking about. 100 people is a very small number of people, right, compared to everyone who you can reach with your story. But two, I would say, you know, make sure you're in a healthy place, that you're not writing from a bitter place, because you can also get other information. What I call it with my book coaching clients is power. You can get power from other people. That is research, that is statistics, that's other stories. So you can actually position your story to help others, like basically use other content to tell your story. And it doesn't have to be totally about you. So I'm getting into book coaching here. It doesn't have to be totally about you. It can just be, it can be your story, but it can be a lot of other voices in that book, so that it isn't like a badgering him. It's not attacking him, but it's simply helping other people heal. So we can definitely talk about that offline if you want more like help with that, but it's a way to do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Tamika, you were going to chime in?
Yes, that's also what I was going to say, is there's always going to be a way to tell a story. And just because you're writing a book about real life experience, it doesn't have to be a tabloid. And I think that that's really our mindset, especially when it comes to the people that are in our lives, our experiences. We think I have to give every detail from A to Z. But when you do that, they are positioning it to be a tabloid, and that's really not the purpose of it. So if you want to share an experience about living with your father, you can talk about abusive personalities. You can tell it from a position of power, and not where you are angry or bitter or hurt, or where it is going to intentionally hurt feelings when you know that intention going in. So we have to, again, make sure that we're in a healthy place so that we are okay. And that may mean, you know, removing yourself, and this may sound weird, but disconnecting yourself from the text. So it's not so personal, but you're sharing from a broad spectrum range of, this is what I've learned in that relationship. Now, you know, the ugly side of life is that a lot of times in these experiences, it is going to involve other people. There's no getting around. But when you choose to tell the story from a healthy place, you can certainly tell it without making it a taboo and still getting your point across.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Can I just add one more point? Yes.
Go ahead, girl. You can make two more if you want to. Go ahead.
So, you know, we often forget about this, but hello, guys, there is a such thing as fiction and nonfiction. You can always write your book as fiction. It can be your true story, but you can write it as fiction, and you can put based on a true story. And even right now, we have an author who did that a couple of years ago. We published an author, and it's all her true story, but you know, she writes it as fiction, and she was able to use that in book talks. It still launched her to be a powerful speaker and a subject matter expert on these issues, except her book, it is quote unquote fiction. And so sometimes, you know, just depend on, you know, what your goals are as a writer, you know, you might even want to consider that.
Yeah, because you can sprinkle some fiction with some facts, right? You can juice it up.
Yes.
You know, change the names to protect the innocent, or guilty, as they say.
You should do that anyway, even though it's not illegal. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say that, you know, if the folks that's watching are paying attention, what we're really sharing with you is process, and we're providing you with some alternatives and some ways that you can write your book. Like Trey, when you said, sometimes writing a book can seem like a very overwhelming task, and it can be if you don't have an opportunity to listen to a live like this, where we're giving you the nuggets, we're giving you the tips. This is, you know, we're sharing it with you, so it may help to change your mindset a little bit, so that you don't see writing a book as so overwhelming. You'll see that, you know what, this is something that I can actually do, and it doesn't have to be so overwhelming, and I don't have to, you know, think or feel a way about it. I can actually just produce the content that I've been called to, and make it easier on you.
Do you think, guys, or do you believe that because Dr. Felicia, she says, I've been wanting to tell the story, that says she's got a story to tell, because it's pulling at her?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a burden. You should definitely tell your story.
And it's saying that she's been sitting on it for a while.
She's been sitting on it for a while. Yeah.
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 Even if you don't, so sometimes, you know, here's the thing about life, right? We never really know every step. We don't know, like, if I take this step, this is going to happen. If I take this step, this is going to happen. What you should just do is start the first step. Start writing. You never know what it is that will end up being published. You never know how. You never know if once your book publishes, like for me, I was very, very nervous to write my book. Okay. And it was me being obedient to God. Once I wrote that book, guys, my entire life changed. It really propelled me into my purpose. I became a ghostwriter. A ghost wrote 10 books that same year, a book publisher, a book coach, a minister. All of these things were wrapped up into my obedience, into telling that story. And so oftentimes it's fear, it's the enemy knowing what's on the other side. Like, I can't let her tell this book. I mean, I can't let her tell this story. And I want to tell you a quick story about that. This is my book. I'm going to show you guys my book. This is my first book, 10 Blessings of Betrayal. It's only about 12,000 words. And I was like, I'm just going to publish it as an ebook. People kept asking me for the paperback book. When I started to promote that book, people began to send me death threats. Literally, my ex-abuser, people that was in that circle began to slander my name, run my name through the mud on social media, call me hanging up, tweeting me death threats. It was so much fear that was trying to seep in to keep me from telling that story, because as long as I let that story stay locked up inside of me, I would have been a prisoner to my past. I would have been a prisoner to every experience I had been through, to being an abuse victim, a prisoner, even to my business at that time. I was a prisoner to it. And so everything, I think that so many things in my life, you know, my purpose, my future was tied up into me being obedient when God said right. And then a year to the date when I was wrongfully accused of those crimes, he told me to publish. If I would have said, no, God, I can't do that, I really can't, I'm scared, then I would have probably been in the same situation, you know, over and over again. I would have continued to repeat cycles. And so we never know what is wrapped up in our obedience to right.
Woo, girl, you know what?
Listen, and here's the thing. Y'all hear what she said? If she would have allowed fear to creep in and hold her back, she essentially would not have everything that she lives in her life today. But that's what happens when we allow fear and our stories to hold us back, when we're not obedient, when we know that God is leading us to do something, or we sit on it for years. Imagine how delayed we are, how much we are delaying the blessings that God has for us. That's what this looks like on the other side. Like Natasha said, there are 7+ billion people in the world. Why are we worried about 20, 25, 100 people? No. And 9 times out of 10, those are not going to be the people that's going to buy the book anyway. Our book, our voices, our stories are for the world. So we have to always keep that in mind. Don't allow fear to lock up your story, lock up your potential, lock up your future, lock up your next level. If God is calling you to do it, then it is time for you to write that book. And considering what the state of our world now, we should know that time is the great equalizer. Time is the thing that we all have right now. We are all in the same situation and space right now. So why not take advantage of the time that you have been given? Don't allow your story to lie dormant in you anymore.
Wow. Yeah. Tamika Sims and Natasha Brown join us today on Coping with COVID. If you have a book inside you, it's got to be out on the floor somewhere right now after listening to these two powerful sisters. And that's what we're talking about. What is your story? What have you experienced? What is your area of expertise? If you have got something that's been brewing inside of you, like Dr. Riggs said, this would be a great time to write your book. I want to thank everybody for watching Coping with COVID. Camille P said, my God, this is good. Speaking Natasha from Diane. Also, Diane Prince Williams says, Tamika, so true. Those are not the ones who will buy the book. Dr. Riggs says that she joined a Facebook group and told her testimony. She's currently mentoring 2 young ladies in California. And it is pulling on her.
That's
yeah, I think the fact that, you know, Dr. Riggs, you joined the Facebook group, and now because of your testimony, 2 young ladies reached out to you and said, I need your help. That's just the tip of the iceberg. that's God showing you, you know, look at what telling your testimony has done in this small Facebook group.
Yes.
Imagine how she could
Mhm.
really impact the world.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, Naomi Nee says, thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us on Coping with COVID. We're going to take a little break because I need something. I need a break because this is so good. Listen, I didn't know it was going to be this good. I just didn't know. You know, you never know. We're going to guess. But we're going to come right back with more of your comments and more from Natasha and Tamika. We already talked about if you have an area of expertise or a story to tell, that's the time. You know you've got a book. Write it down, journal it. And then we're going to talk about some next steps. If you have got a book in your heart, in your spirit, and we're going to talk about it with these powerful ladies, Natasha Brown and Tamika Sims on Coping with COVID. We'll be right back, ladies. Coping with COVID is brought to you in part by Agape Counseling and Training Center. If you have a issue, challenge coping with COVID, please contact Agape Counseling and Training Center. Also, we've got some other sponsors of Coping with COVID.
Coping with COVID is sponsored by the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, helping to meet the needs of small, minority, and women-owned businesses in the City of Columbia, South Carolina. Inbox Tailor-Made Productions on Facebook to find out how you can join the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities. Coping with COVID is sponsored in part by the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. Visit scdhec.gov for an updated list of testing sites and important information on how to protect yourself, your family, and your friends from the coronavirus. SCDHEC, healthy people, healthy communities.
COVID is also brought to you in part by the Columbia Housing Authority. The agency is looking for stories from former residents of Allen Benedict Court. If they want to retain some of the property's rich history. In its 80-year life, Allen Benedict Court has been home to some of the country's elite, including a Grammy-winning performer, corporate executives, national television celebrities, a host of doctors, lawyers, and NBA greats. So share your pictures, mementos, and memories with the Columbia Housing Authority. You can log on to CHCares at CHASC.org. Hey, also, don't forget that Coping with COVID is going to move over to my professional page, Tailor-Made Productions. So please be sure to go over there and like and follow Tailor-Made Productions. I'm Tre Tailor, and you're watching Coping with COVID. We're talking to Tamika Sims and Natasha Brown today, and we are talking about how to write your book. Do you have a book in your heart that you've been wanting to talk?
Coping with COVID is sponsored by the City of Columbia Office of Business.
That you've been wanting to talk about, that you want to share. These two ladies have been sharing with us some incredible information, and we're going to resume our conversation right now. Want to go to some comments. We've got a comment from Dr. Felicia Riggs, who says she has chills right now. Thank you, Felicia. Yeah, this is so powerful. Diane Prince Williams says her younger sister is a teacher, and she wanted a book to start the conversation with her elementary school about COVID-19, death, and protesting. So Diane wrote, Grandma on Being Different, to help with that void. She said she had a story floating in her head about an albino slug discovered on her patio who died. She said she didn't know how to use it until her niece made that request. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, all right. So now we know we have the story, if we've got a story to tell, if we've experienced something, if we've got a testimony, if we have an area of expertise, we've got a book inside of us. We know to get a book or something and just start journaling, just write. So what are we writing? Just down our thoughts about the particular subject or just anything that comes to mind. And it doesn't matter if it makes sense. We're just writing down some things. Is that right, ladies?
Yes.
Yes, I would say so, because those journal writings and those thoughts can oftentimes be the beginning of an outline for your book. You need to have some sort of structure, foundation, formation of what you want the story to look like when it's actually published. And so having an idea, some, thought process along how you want the story to flow or what you want to share specifically, whether you're sharing principles or keys, lessons or strategies, being able to identify what the most important are for the book that you're working on, and then filling in the content from there.
All right. Josetta Small says that she's going to be in touch. She said, because God has called her to launch out on her story, her testimonies in life experience through writing a book. She said, this is such a confirmation. She said, God will confirm what he moves us to do for his glory. Good seeing you, Tamika. Josetta says that you and she worked together. So she's looking
Yes, I remember. Hey, Josetta.
That is great. Okay, so what would be the next step, ladies? What do we do after we've written down a month worth of stuff? How do we know we're ready for the next step? And what is that next step?
Yeah, so one way, if you know for sure that you're going to write a book, I would say sometimes it's easier not to say, I'm going to write an outline, I'm going to write a book outline, even though you are. But I like to tell people, write down your big ideas that you want to share in your book, whether it's going to be topical or chronological. So some people want to tell a story or their own story based on dates in their life from the beginning to the end or a certain experience. I would say just begin to do a brain dump of those topics that you want to write. And then if you know you have a lot of journals, then you can begin to put the journal sections with the topics. Another great way to start to write a book. Most people, honestly, that I've worked with, and I've coached hundreds of authors at this point, most people have a hard time actually writing, like sitting down at a computer writing or even journaling. They have a hard time. So one way to get through that is actually talk it out. Talk out your story. It's so easy for us. Like we've probably talked a book out in this hour, in this 40 minutes, right? And so
Yes.
to actually just talk your book out and use a voice recording tools, such as you can use Google Docs or some other things, but just talk your story out by topic. And those are two ways that you can get started right now, no matter where you are.
Well, you know what you said, Natasha, that was interesting. You said that what I heard you say, you could be really working on several books at a time. You know, you could have one notebook for one story, one notebook for another. And as it comes to you, you just write some things in either one of those things. Because I know a lot of people may say, okay, what about if I've got several projects I want to work on? You're saying you can work on journaling or jotting down that information at the same time. Tamika?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree because, a lot of times there are lots of thoughts and ideas floating around in our mind. And so I don't believe that anything is ever wasted, especially when it comes to us telling stories and writing books. So if you can have a notebook or notebooks where you can jot down this information so that you don't lose it, or as Natasha is saying, is speaking their book into, you can have your voice notes, your voice recordings, those things can be transcribed. And who knows, you may have written a book already, but you just didn't realize that that's what it was going to be. You were just sharing what was on your heart and mind at the moment. And another piece of advice that I would share is I always try to caution my writers to think about their ideal reader. And I know, that's a little tough sometimes to think outside of ourselves, because a lot of people will say, oh, I'm writing a book for the woman that's just like me. And so the woman that's just like you, what does that really mean? And what can you, surmise about the person that you imagine reading your book? What do you know about them? What can you think about them? What do you perceive? How do you know where they are in their lives? And all of these are really hypothetical questions. But when you start to think along those lines, it also helps you with framing your content. It's because you know that writing a book that your audience needs. And I've seen too many writers get frustrated with making sales and not being able to push their books, etc., because they didn't write a book that their audience needed. They wrote the book that they wanted to write, which there's nothing wrong with, but you have to make sure that you're also in tune, because you have to connect both parts of that puzzle.
Right. Josetta Small says, such a revelation. She says she's got 2 different books to start. Jeffrey Johnson wants to know about publishing, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But thank you, Jeffrey Johnson, and everyone for watching Coping with COVID. Natasha Brown and Tamika Sims is giving us the step-by-step instructions on how to get your book started. And we are going to talk about publishing, and we're going to give you these ladies' contact information, because both of them are not only authors, but book coaches. So if you've got a book in your heart, we definitely want you to reach out to Natasha and or Tamika. All right. So we've got a notebook full of stuff. And now, as you said, then at some point we just figure out which book is filled, and then just call one of y'all to say, I don't know what to do with these 10 notebooks worth of stuff.
So
that's what I would do next.
You definitely want to, if you're writing, like physically writing, you definitely want to try to have your notebooks transcribed, like actually put in manuscript form.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to do that. You can pay someone to do it, or you contact us. We can connect you with a transcriber or, a typist. And you definitely want to get it in electronic form so that it can be manipulated.
Yes.
So I also recommend, a lot of people, we're in a digital age. So when we say journaling, I don't mean that you actually like have to write, even though that is very helpful to, write it with your hands. But you can also use certain apps like Day One app or Google Keep or Google Docs to kind of keep track of your different notebooks and different ideas. And that's what I do. So I think that was Janetta, I think. Josetta, she has 2 books. Okay, honey, I have like 10. Okay, so I have them all in different documents. So I feel you there. And I just kind of work on whichever one that I want to at a time. But I would say, regarding which book you're going to publish and go forward with the biggest burden, or you want to go forward with the lowest hanging fruit, or if you're trying to establish brand credibility or launch in a certain market, write that book first. So it just depends on what your goals are.
So Natasha, what would be low hanging fruit? Because I definitely get what you're saying. If you're branding, if you want to go into, like Josetta is a minister, she may want to write, a ministry book if she's going in a certain area, or as you said, the one that you've got that's burning inside of you. But what would low hanging fruit be?
That's the book that is easy for you to write. So
Gotcha.
if there's like 7 tips that you tell people, 7 tips to get the best job now, right? And so if you're always coaching people on these 7 tips on how they're going to land their best job, their career making job, then just write that book if that's your industry and you want to position yourself. That's a low hanging fruit for you. Something you can just do easily.
Yeah.
And I will say this is that a low hanging fruit book for me was a book I wrote for authors. I've served authors for 6 years and had never written a resource for them. But one Sunday morning, I was at my kitchen table and my sister was at my house, and I said, I'm going to write a book for authors. And 8 hours later, I had finished this ebook.
Wow.
So if you're really consistent and committed to the goal, there really is nothing that stands in your way but yourself. You don't have to do it in 8 hours like me. That was a challenge because I can be a bit of an overachiever. So you don't have to do that. But the point is that you have the time. And I think that that's also a challenge. Folks struggle with the money or the time to write a book. And you absolutely have the time. All of us have this in 24 hours, but it's up to you to make the time in your calendar and in your schedule to actually get it done.
Right. Diane Prince Williams says, if you've got Microsoft Word, that will allow you to dictate your thoughts and type them out right before your eyes. She says there's also an audio feature that will read you back what you've written, which she finds helpful in hearing someone read what she's written.
Yes, that's good. Yeah. I need to update my Microsoft Word.
So guys, ladies, I can't believe it's already been an hour. Jeffrey mentioned publishing, so I do want to cover that. Who do you call for publishing?
So, okay.
Well, you call Natasha.
Yeah, I was going to say we are publishers, so we can definitely help you. You have to know, like right now, you can publish yourself as well. So I'm not, saying you have to go to a publisher. You can actually publish yourself. There are so many courses. We have a lot of resources at Elohai International Publishing that will teach you how to publish yourself. But the thing about publishing is you need a book editor. You need a typesetter who's going to do the interior. You need a book cover designer. You need all these different things. And so if you go to a resource like myself, I'm not sure if Tamika does every step, but if you do go to one of us or a resource like an independent publisher like my company, then we can definitely handle it all for you, where you can just approve things. Then you won't have to, worry about who you're going to get to do this and who you're going to get to do that. So that's the benefit of working with an independent publisher. And then of course, publishing is a big animal, and I'll just stop right there.
Yeah. No, I echo your sentiments. I don't actually do all steps, so I do more of the consulting piece when it comes to publishing. So I like to empower you with the information that I've learned, both personally through the books that I've written myself, as well as my clients. And so sharing with you the different options that you have. But I do offset services, so I'm an editor. If a person doesn't want to work with me from a coaching perspective, so if they want to come to me to get their book edited, they can do that as well. And then I have resources of individuals that can do the typesetting, the formatting, cover design, etc.
Right, right. So how much of a financial investment can this be, ladies?
I would say it just depends. So here's the thing about publishing your book and getting everything together. It always depends on how big your book is. So like your editing is going to basically depend on how small or big your book is and how good your writing is. Okay. Because I'm an editor, but if someone comes to me that like, so Tamika's an editor as well. So she will come to me if she came to me because she doesn't want to edit her own work and vice versa, because I don't like to edit my own books either. And so her book might be a better read. It might be cleaner than someone who's not a writer, who's not an editor. So her editing cost wouldn't be as expensive as someone else who's absolutely not a writer. So everything really depends on your word count and the people that you use and the type of vision that you have. Because so this is a book that we did. Well, let me show you this book. This is a book that we did. It's very minimal, right? A minimalistic design, right? Minimalistic designs. But if you have a design, a book cover design that has animation and it's very complex, then that will increase your cost. So I would say definitely start with trying to save at least $2,000 or more, depending on how much, depending on your project.
Right. Tamika, were you going to jump in?
I agree. I agree with that. No, I agree. I agree with what she said. It depends on your creative vision. It is going to be a financial investment. I think we all should know and understand that it is going to cost you something, and not just money. It's also going to cost you time and resources as well. So go into it with that. For those of you that want to self-publish, the notion of self-published authors is that, they like to cut corners. So save your money, take the time to publish your book. You're not in a rush. You're not on anybody's timeline, your own. So just mindful of that. Save your money. Really think about your vision, because a book is a huge investment. So you want to make sure that you do it right, because it literally becomes the physical representation for you for the rest of your lifetime and your children's lifetime. So once you publish forever. So just go in with understanding that you always want it to be the best representation of you.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Tamika, because I wanted to chime in about that we know we all don't have the same area of expertise. I may be able to do something. Yeah. Tamika, you have a skill set. Natasha, you have a skill set. Lauren has a skill set. And we've got to recognize it's okay that you don't know how to do everything. There's somebody else who can help you with that. And you should look into someone else to do what you cannot do. One, because you're going to stress yourself out about doing something you don't have the skill set to do. Yes. And two, it's always good to have somebody else's eyes on it. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
I do. And also, you want to hire people that's experts. If you're not a graphics designer, if it's not something that you do every day, don't try to tackle your book cover. If you just because you were good in English in high school or whatever the case may be, and I'm not speaking down against that. Hire someone that's a professional editor where this is their job, because you can trust the quality of the work that you're going to receive. It's going to be professional. You'll get it back timely. Lots of times editors may offer multiple rounds, so they'll continue to catch and perfect your work. Like, you want to hire professionals, especially when it comes to a project like this, because again, books don't have a shelf life, so there's never going to run out of it. But look at the doors that it can open for you: television, radio, colleges and universities, speaking platforms. About, so you have to think about that level of investment. And just because you're a self-published author, you still have to compete with traditionally published books. Right. Every book has a genre. And if your book is in the same genre as a T.D. Jakes or a Susie Orman, for example, it still has to compete. And people do books by their cover, for example. Yeah. So you want to make that investment so that it is also on that same sort of on that same level.
Yeah, I love that. If you're going to do it in the best way you can. do it. It is a representation of you.
Yeah. And the other thing that happens a lot of times, Trey and Tamika, I know you know this, but a lot of times what happens with self-published authors, or even people who have gotten like their best friend who's an English teacher to edit their book, is they don't realize that there is a certain standard and a style guide in the publishing industry. And so if you don't know that, for instance, I came from a journalism world, and in the journalism world, we use AP. Well, at my newspapers that I work with, our style guide was AP, Associated Press.
Right.
When you get into most books, so then if you're in high school and college, many of them use MLA. And then if you are in theological school, while I was in seminary, I had to use Turabian style guide. So now as a book publisher, I have to use Chicago Manual of Style. I have all these style guides in my head, but Chicago Manual of Style is what's really like, in my head, because it's what's used mostly in the book publishing industry. But many people don't know that. They just think it just needs to have subject verb agreement. But if you're really trying to publish a book and have it professionally done, then you need to know the style guide, and you need to also know the language of that industry. And that's for anything we're doing.
Yeah, that's so good. Josetta Small says she feels a sigh of relief, feeling overwhelmed. She says she's got to get her feeling that she had to get her book done fast. Another revelation nugget. So glad, Josetta, that this information is helpful to you. Diane Prince Williams says so true about the competition. So ladies, if people want more information about either of you, you, Tamika, as I said, go over exactly what services you offer and how people can contact you. Tamika?
Sure. So I am, of course, I'm at Get Right with Tamika across all social media platforms. So please feel free to connect with me there. And I also book coaching. Of course, I offer book writing strategy sessions, content editing as well. If you're in business and you're publishing your emails, your newsletters, etc., and you need a copy editor to go over it, I'm happy to offer that service as well. And if you need assistance with publishing or deciding which avenues you need to, which avenue is going to be the best for you and your published work, then I'm happy to offer assistance for that as well.
And how can people contact you?
They can send an email to tamikasims@gmail.com.
All right, tamikasims@gmail.com. And Natasha?
Yes. So my company is called Elohai International Publishing and Media. So it's a little bit difficult to pronounce and maybe spell, but if you, so what we do is we offer everything from, the publishing, media, storytelling, any of that. So from A to Z. So we do a lot of ghostwriting and book coaching. We do editing, author, book brand strategy. So we help our authors actually establish their brand. We can do children's book, picture books, illustrations, all of that, cover design, registration, anything you can think of in the publishing, as well as we're a media company. So we also do production, and script writing and things like that as well. And so the easiest way is to just type Natasha T. Brown. I'm on social media as Natasha T. Brown, and my website, natashatbrown.com, is actually on my company website. So if you go to natashatbrown.com, you'll be at my company, and you can just look at the tabs at the top and select where you want to go from there.
Awesome. Natasha Brown, Tamika Sims, what a great source of information. And this has been just so interesting, empowering, informative. And I just know that we are going to get some great books and some great stories out of it. And I'm going to post and share you guys information on this post, on this broadcast. So please, everyone watching, contact Natasha and or Tamika. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today on COVID with COVID. Good luck to you both, and God bless you.
God bless you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Trey.
Thank you so much. So you've heard how to get in touch with Natasha and Tamika. Please continue to stay in touch with me here at Tailor Made Productions. Please run over to my professional Facebook page and tailor-made production so that you can not only watch Coping with COVID Monday through Saturday at 2:00, but you can get all of your COVID-related updates. Now, tomorrow, youth are going to be on the show to tell us how they've been filling their time during the pandemic. Fun Friday with J. Anthony Brown is this Friday. He's going to bring with him Sybil Wilkes from the Tom Jordan Morning Show. And we're also going to hear from Columbia, South Carolina Mayor Steve Benjamin. He's got a new promotion about masks that he's going to tell you about. And then our COVID Survivor Show is Saturday. Pastor Herbert Bailey, Representative Cambro Garvin, and Dr. Baron Davis with Richland School District 2 are among the guests that will join us and share with us about their COVID journey. I'm Tre Tailor. Thank you again so much for joining me on Coping with COVID. As usual, I leave you with my reading from Jesus Calling today. Jesus says, "Thank me for the very things that are troubling you. You are on the brink of rebellion, precariously close to shaking your fist in my face. You are tempted to indulge in just a little complaining about my treatment of you. But once you step over that line, torrents of rage and self-pity can sweep you away. The best protection against this indulgence is thanksgiving. It is impossible to thank me and curse me at the same time," Jesus says. "Thanking me for trials will feel awkward and contrived at first, but if you persist, your thankful words and prayer in faith will eventually make a difference in your heart. Thankfulness awakens you to my presence, which overshadows all of your problems. Thank him for everything." Thank you so much for joining us once again on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. And until tomorrow, I wish you peace, abundant blessings, and safety and good health. Don't forget to wear your mask. Have a great afternoon.